Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We are now boarding all passengers in all rows. All passengers in all rows, please proceed to gate A8.
On December 24, 1999, Indian Airlines Flight 814, commonly known as IC-814, en route from Kathmandu to Delhi, was hijacked by 5 terrorists and diverted to Kandahar in Afghanistan. 1 week later, Masood Azhar, a top commander of Pakistan-based Harkatul Mujahideen, was released in exchange for over 150 hostages. Masood Azhar returned to Pakistan, but not to HUM. Instead, he set up a new terrorist outfit, JeM, whose audacious attacks brought India and Pakistan to the brink of war on more than one occasion. Asianet Newsable digs deep into how this Pakistan-bred terror outfit evolved.
All terror organizations, the Jaish-e-Mohammed is a threat because of what it believes in and what it is trying to accomplish, which is it's trying to achieve the separation of Kashmir from India. So that itself is enough to make it a threat. But the reason that the Jaish-e-Mohammed and a few other outfits like it, like the Lashkar-e-Toiba, are so dangerous is because they are completely integrated into Pakistani society.
It is, as you all know very well, that he is the guy, Maulana, who went and Nazir Assad, who went and created the Jaish-e-Mohammed. A little bit of background over here would be interesting. You see what happens. Let me first get one basic principle in place. Whether it is Jaish-e-Mohammed, whether it is LET, whether it is Harkatul Mujahideen, whether it is Harkatul Ansar, just anything. They are like multi-headed hydra. You chop one head, 2 heads will come out. Okay, and this has been part of Pakistan's strategy of managing the terrorist groups in India.
What is their motive? Who are their leaders? How do they financially sustain their terror activities? What goes behind their recruitment? How do they operate to spread terror? What has the international response been so far, and more? We decode the Jaish-e-Mohammed. On February 14, 2019, 44 CRPF personnel were killed in Jammu and Kashmir's Pulwama district when a local Kashmiri terrorist Adil Dar drove a Tata Sumo packed with explosives in the range of 200 to 350 kilos into a bus that was part of a CRPF convoy of 70 vehicles. Pakistan-based banned terror outfit Jaish-e-Mohammed claimed responsibility of the attack. A designated terror outfit by India, United Nations, United States and United Kingdom, the Jaish-e-Mohammed, which literally means the Army of Muhammad, operates to liberate Kashmir from Indian control and integrate the state within Pakistan.
The Jaish-e-Mohammed was formed after Masood Azhar was released, like you said, following the hijacking of IC-814. And when it started out, it was a relatively small organization, but it had the full backing of the Pakistani ISI, and there were fighters from various countries, but most of them from Pakistan and Afghanistan. Um, and after the success of their first major attack, which was the attack on Indian Parliament, in which I believe 5 people were killed, and that attack took place in December of 2001, which is just a few months after the World Trade Center attacks of September 11, 2001. The group basically just got a whole bunch of notoriety, and it was now seen as a major terrorist organization. And they didn't look back after that.
Masood Azhar had his first brush with terrorists who were part of the jihad in Afghanistan while teaching at a madrasa in Karachi. After a brief stint in Afghanistan, Azhar returned to Karachi. Recognizing his oratory skills, he was appointed head of Harkatul Mujahideen's Department of Motivation. Seen as the terror group's best orator, he rose to become its general secretary. After withdrawal of Russian forces from Afghanistan, HUM focused on Jammu and Kashmir. In February 1994, Azhar entered India on a Portuguese passport, disguised as a businessman to attempt a patch-up between different HUM factions. Harkat's then chief in the valley, Sajjad Afghani, took Azhar to a mosque in South Kashmir to deliver a Friday sermon when their car broke down. They took an auto rickshaw which was stopped by the Indian Army in Anantnag. Both Masood Azhar and Sajjad Afghani were arrested after a brief chase. Azhar's arrest rattled HUM in Pakistan.
You see, by about 1998, more or less the situation in Kashmir was coming under control, Situation in Kashmir was coming under control, and that is the time when our Indian Prime Minister, Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he had sort of given the call for peace. If you recall, he had traveled to Lahore in that bus. I think they called it Sada-e Sarhad. He traveled in that bus with a whole lot of people from multiple, walks of life, backgrounds in India. They traveled and they signed the Lahore Declaration. And behind that, we all know what was happening. Because of the decline in the popular support for the terrorists, so Musharraf, he conceived the Kargil. And soon after that, Kargil happened. So after Kargil, when they got the sort of beating, what did they do? They did this IC-814 hijack.
However, 5 years later, in December 1999, Harkat terrorists hijacked Delhi-bound IC-814 with 180 passengers and crew members on board and took it to Kandahar, Afghanistan, then under the Taliban's control. They demanded the release of Masood Azhar, Kashmiri terrorist commander Mushtaq Ahmad Zargar, and Omar Saeed Sheikh. On December 31, 1999, Azhar, Mushtaq, and Sheikh were taken to Kandahar and released by the Indian government in exchange of the passengers. After returning to Pakistan, Masood Azhar established the Jaish-e-Mohammed in early 2000. He received enormous financial and logistic support from Pakistan's ISI, the Taliban regime in Kabul, and the Al-Qaeda leadership then resident there. He set up a headquarters for Jaish at a seminary in the heart of Bahawalpur in a neighborhood called Kausar Colony. It was also during this time that Azhar rallied for support across Pakistan, calling for jihadis to join him in the fight to liberate Kashmir. JEM's ideological beliefs extend beyond J&K, with the group calling for the destruction of India, Israel, and the United States of America by waging jihad against the respective nations, which it regards as having violated the rights of Muslim people. The figures on membership numbers for JEM are variable. Media reporting from mid-2019 states there were approximately 56 active JEM members in Jammu and Kashmir. A UN report from May 2020 indicates that Jaish-e-Mohammed has approximately 230 armed fighters co-located with Taliban forces in Afghanistan. JeM openly acknowledges the existence of its schools across Pakistan, which train and prepare young men about the importance of engaging in jihad against Indian rule. A large number of men are also recruited from Pakistan's so-called jihad factory of Punjab province, with an especially large percentage from Multan, Bahawalpur, and Rahim Yar Khan districts. The group also received a major boost to its insurgency efforts when the ultra-right Sipah-e-Sahiban of Pakistan pledged at least 1 lakh cadre to Masood Azhar in 2002. The Jaish-e-Mohammed also enjoys the benefit of being associated with the Binori town mosque and more than 8,000 students who learn at the location. Until 2001, the Jaish-e-Mohammed had training facilities in Afghanistan. They then reportedly relocated to Balakot in the northwest frontier province, Peshawar, and in parts of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, namely Muzaffarabad. One may recall, following the Pulwama attack in 2019, the Indian Air Force conducted an airstrike on February 26th in the vicinity of the town of Balakot that destroyed the Jaish-e-Mohammed's facility. National Technical Research Organization Intelligence reported on March 12th that 263 Jaish-e-Mohammed recruits were stationed at the Balakot camp when the IAF struck. The general training schedule of Jaish-e-Mohammed recruits as collated by Indian agencies and handed over to Pakistan is also very detailed. Members of the group are also trained in the use of highly sophisticated weapons, including light and heavy machine guns, assault rifles, mortars, rocket grenades, and improvised explosive devices. Most Jaish-e-Mohammed attacks have been described as Fidain attacks. In this mode, terrorists of the outfit storm a high-security target, including security forces base, camps, and convoys.
The Jaish-e-Mohammed has been doing two things. They've been carrying out suicide bombings and these suicide missions, which are not just bombings, but which involve, fighting with guns after storming what they consider enemy territory. But they've also tried to recruit people from Kashmir. They've tried to recruit people from Kashmir, bring them over to their training camps in Pakistan, and then send them back into Kashmir to fight against Indian security forces.
After storming, they either fortify themselves within the target, killing as many security force personnel and civilians as possible before they are killed by retaliatory action. In other cases, they kill and injure as many as possible before attempting to escape. The Jaish-e-Mohammed derives income from both legitimate business interests and Islamic charitable foundations. The Al-Rahmat Trust is the principal source of income for Jaish-e-Mohammed and continues to operate despite being sanctioned by several countries. The Al-Rahmat Trust and Al-Furqan Trust were banned by the Pakistani government as well in May 2019 for their ties to Jaish-e-Mohammed. Jaish-e-Mohammed supports over 300 Islamic institutions in Pakistan and gathers donations from attendees at these institutions. Publicly, the donations are stated to provide cash and medicine to students of servants of religious schools and centers, orphans, widows, and those afflicted with disaster, and migrants on the path to God. There is also speculation that the group shares good relations with the Al-Qaeda network, receiving substantial funding from Afghan Arabs and the Taliban. The Indian government has claimed that the group is backed and funded by Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence Agency, which has aided the Jaish-e-Mohammed in recruiting and training terrorists, as well as allegedly paying them large sums of money to carry out operations in Kashmir.
The ISI continues to support them and continues to provide funding, material resources, training, protection. And when you have the backing of the state, nothing really can touch you as long as you're, within the confines of your country. But of course, that is what India has now tried to change by carrying out the airstrikes that followed the attack in Kashmir.
Over the years, the Jaish-e-Mohammed has been held accountable for numerous attacks both in Jammu and Kashmir and other parts of India. They laid claim to being the pioneer of suicide or Fidain attacks in Jammu and Kashmir when it rammed an explosive-laden vehicle into the gates of the Badami Bagh cantonment area of Srinagar in April 2000. The attack was the first of its kind in the 13-year history of terrorism in the valley and developed a modus operandi of sorts that has continued till date. In October 2001, Jaish-e-Mohammed were responsible for a car bomb targeting the State Assembly building in Srinagar. Following this attack, India, through intense diplomatic efforts and appeal to the international community, got the United Nations list Jaish-e-Mohammed as an international terrorist organization on October 17, 2001.
If you see, it happened actually in a sequence of events. 11/9, Twin Towers. So that was a very, very major thing which shook up the whole world. And then the JNK Assembly, and then the Indian Parliament. So all of them, if you recollect, they happened one after the other. So now, if you see, by about October 2001, Jaish-e-Mohammed had actually taken shape. The JNK Assembly attack was done by them.
Despite its listing by the UN, Jaish-e-Mohammed gained further worldwide notoriety when it executed the audacious and daring attack on the Indian Parliament along with the Lashkar-e-Taiba on December 13, 2001. In response, apart from taking recourse to a full-might military mobilization during Operation Parakram, India also mounted intense diplomatic campaign against Pakistan-sponsored trans-border terrorism. This led to the United States designating Jaish-e-Mohammed as a foreign terrorist organization along with the Lashkar-e-Taiba on December 26, 2001. In January 2002, Wall Street journalist Daniel Pearl was abducted by Jaish-e-Mohammed members in Karachi, making international news. He was beheaded several weeks after his abduction. Under intense international pressure, Pakistan was soon compelled to ban the Jaish-e-Mohammed in January 2002. By 2003, Jaish-e-Mohammed had split into the Qudam-ul-Islam, led by Masood Azhar, and Jamaat-ul-Furqan, led by Abdul Jabbar. Despite the splintering of JEM, the group continues to assume and be associated with its original identity. Following the then Pakistan President Musharraf's sudden U-turn to join the post-9/11 US war on terror, Jaish-e-Mohammed demanded Musharraf's resignation and also launched several suicide attacks in various cities including Islamabad, Muri, Taxila and Bahawalpur. In November 2003, Pakistan reacted by banning Qudam-ul-Islam as well as Jamaat-ul-Furqan. Enraged by Musharraf's decision, Masood Azhar tried to carry out 2 assassination attempts on the convoy of the president himself on December 14 and 25, 2003. Those responsible for the attempted assassination bid on Musharraf were identified, put on trial and convicted to death, which was later on carried out. Despite Masood Azhar's professed loyalty to the Pakistani establishment, whose creation he was, Pakistani authorities put Jaish-e-Mohammed in the doghouse and confined Azhar under frequent house arrests in Bahawalpur. This was entirely due to the assassination attempts Masood Azhar had launched on Musharraf. In India too, the terror group lost grounds in Jammu and Kashmir, where most of its ranks were neutralized by the security forces. In an exceptionally well-crafted intelligence-driven operation by the Indian security forces at Lolab in early 2004, Jaish-e-Mohammed suffered heavy losses. Despite this, the Jaish-e-Mohammed carried the Ayodhya complex attack on July 5, 2005, which is believed to have been intended at destabilizing India's political and societal establishment. The July 7, 2005 suicide bombings in London caught the world's attention towards the extent to which JeM had penetrated societies across the globe. One of the 4 suicide bombers who detonated a rucksack is said to have contacted members of Jaish-e-Mohammed while on a religious studies course in Pakistan. The earthquake which struck Kashmir and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir on October 8, 2005 temporarily crippled the operations of Jaish-e-Mohammed. Following this, JeM struggled to get a firm foothold in Kashmir. At this juncture, Hafiz Saeed and his Lashkar-e-Taiba reasserted its primacy in India-centric operations. LET also enjoyed greater patronage from Pakistani military establishment. However, 2012 marked the turning point in Pakistan ISI's plan for revival of Jaish in Kashmir. Even though the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar was proscribed by the United Nations and the United States, Pakistan's state machinery continued protecting the group. Masood Azhar freely operated in his hometown Bahawalpur in southern Punjab. Masood Azhar's resurfacing on the political landscape of Pakistan since 2014 and its venomous campaigning, full of fiery speeches calling for more attacks on India and the United States, stands testimony to it. Major attacks such as the one on CRPF camp in Tangdar area in July 2015, followed by an attack on the army camp in November 2015, marked the revival of Jaish in the Kashmir Valley. The year 2016 began with the Pathankot terror attack in January, followed by the September 18 Uri attack, which killed 21 Jawans and injured 19 in what was deemed as the deadliest attack on security forces in Kashmir in 2 decades. In response, India launched a diplomatic offensive, trying to isolate Pakistan in the world community. On September 28, it declared that it carried out surgical strikes on terror launch pads in Pakistan's administered Kashmir. The claim was, however, denied by Pakistan.
I would not like to single out Jaish-e-Mohammed as an independent entity for arriving at any, shall we say, distinct threat perception, so to speak. Okay, they are going through their ups and downs. They have taken the beating, and they are continuing some places directly, some places in combination, and so on and so forth. That having been said, here I'm quite tempted to quote Hussain Haqqani, who says very categorically that, okay, Pakistan military may call Kashmir as the core issue, but the whole thing is driven by a much deeper fear of India. The fundamental issue or the fundamental threat perception which I quoted Hussain Haqqani, that fundamental has not changed. So if that fundamental has not changed, I do not think we should, straight away even suggest that threat from any of the terrorist groups has come down, or so to speak. Okay, depending on how our security forces are conducting their operations, the incidents reduce. But does it eliminate the threat? The answer is no.
Starting 2009, there have been 4 attempts to put Masood Azhar in the United Nations Security Council's counter-terrorism sanctions list. All the attempts were vetoed by China, citing lack of evidence. China moved to protect Azhar again in October 2016, when it blocked India's appeal to the United Nations to label him as a terrorist. China also blocked United States' move to get Azhar banned by United Nations in February 2017. The most recent attempt was on 13th March 2019. However, China pulled the blockade in May 2019, finally resulting listing of Masood Azhar as a global terrorist.
I have no doubt that they still exist. I have no doubt that they're still raising money, that they're still recruiting people, that they have fighters on their payroll, because the ISI has refused to bring Masood Azhar to justice. I mean, not that the ISI would. Pakistani courts, Pakistani investigators have refused to bring the Jaish-e-Mohammed to justice despite what happened in Balakot. And despite the tremendous escalation in tensions between India and Pakistan that followed the attack in Kashmir, after which the Balakot airstrikes were carried out. So that's a clear indication that the organization still exists and is operating.